who are appointed by the mayor and approved by city council, 2 non-voting city council liaisons, 2 non-voting members representing different landlord perspectives, and a non-voting representative to the University of Michigan Student Legal Services. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, you'll be able to speak through the webinar link or by phone, depending on your method of access to this meeting. For phone access, please call 877-853-5287 or 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 935-8080-1941. To be called on to speak, callers must press *9 if listening by phone or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link a2gov.org/Renters Commission meeting. You will then be called upon by city staff one by one using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by username if available for those accessing through the web link. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments. City staff will indicate when callers have 30 seconds left of their 3-minute comment period. After 3 minutes, they'll be placed on mute so that we can proceed to the next speaker. Moving on to roll call. Please state the city and township or state where you are attending the meeting from. I'm here, Commissioner Ratcliffe. Let's see, is Commissioner Chen here tonight?
Yeah. Yes, I'm attending the meeting from Ann Arbor, downtown Michigan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see, Commissioner Kelly just sent in his resignation, unfortunately, so he will not be here tonight. Commissioner Droppelman?
I am present in Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank
Commissioner Elite, Commissioner Elsey? Oh.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you and welcome. Commissioner Lowe's?
Present, Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Welcome. Commissioner Tibbetts? Okay. Commissioner Rosen? Commissioner Liao, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Hello, I am here from Albion, Michigan.
All right, thank you and welcome to your first meeting. Commissioner Pitts?
Hi, here from Ann Arbor.
Welcome, and Commissioner Good?
Here in Ann Arbor.
Welcome, thank you. Both Councilmember Radina and Councilmember Harrison sent word that they can't be here tonight. We're going to move on to introductions, and so I'd like to welcome our new member, Michelle Liao. So can we take a moment to go around and introduce ourselves and talk about our interest in serving on the Renters Commission and the perspective we bring? I'll start. I'm Commissioner Ratcliffe Rosanita. I'm the chair of the Renters Commission. I moved back to Ann Arbor in 2020, 2021. I was born and raised here, been a renter in many cities out of state, and I guess that's my perspective on the commission. I joined because I had a valid interest as a renter in the city and a longtime city resident who just wants to see things better for all renters, whether you're a longtime resident, a new resident, or a student. We'll move on to Julia.
Hi, I moved back to Ann Arbor a handful of years ago. Back in the day, after I graduated, I had worked for the Ann Arbor's Tenant Union and Student Legal Services, and went on to do housing work in a couple other cities. I'm no longer doing housing work, but tenants' rights is still a big issue for me.
Thank you. And Kimberly?
Hi. Well, my name is Kimberly. I've lived in Ann Arbor for over 20 years, and I bring a perspective from living in the Ann Arbor Housing Commission area, a resident here. And they actually talked to me about joining the Renters Commission, and I was a little nervous about it, but I thought it would be a good chance to learn more and to really help some of the renters that are my neighbors. So I really wanted to learn more about this commission. So welcome.
Thank you, Kimberly. And Gail, Commissioner Rosen?
Hi, my name is Gail Rosen. I am a housing attorney at Student Legal Services, and so I serve as the liaison between the university and the Renters Commission, and have been doing housing work for a long time, and have a passion for that. So nice to meet you.
Jeff?
Hi, I'm Commissioner Jeff Lowe's. I am on the commission as a longtime resident. In fact, I might be the person that's been in the same place the longest as a renter. I've been here for 10 years, so kind of a long-term thing. I'm also a teacher, and so I know a little bit about what it's like to have to try to move to a city with children and the school system, and how difficult it can be to find a place for those families.
And let's see, who's next on my screen? Dan?
Yes. So I'm Dan Chen. I came from China 5 years, 2 months ago, and I moved to Ann Arbor in September 2020. So it has been a little bit more than 4 years, 4.5 years by now. And I'm a member of the Avalon Housing community, and I'm a vocal member of the Avalon Housing, and I have the internship in the Avalon Housing too. So I'm trying to learn from this community, because it's very important for a lot of people living here to know how to have the chances to have a better living. And I wanted to make myself to have a better person, and I want to have the chances to help others to have the chances to have a better and more pleasant life. That's why, and I really enjoy it, and I enjoy all the chances here and the learning process. Thank you. Everybody here helps me greatly. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and you've been really helpful to us as well. Let's see, Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Troppelman. I'm one of two landlord representatives on the commission. Although I was a renter for more than 10 years before we were able to get our house and get another house that we rent. I came here to represent small landlords and provide their perspective, but primarily to try and make renting easier and more accessible for everyone in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Jordan?
Hi, I'm Jordan. My husband and I own rental property here. We rent to both kind of younger professionals and students in the city. So I do a lot of work with student groups. Our daughter just graduated, so we also have a student in our family. I rented in Ann Arbor a few years before I met my husband, so I kind of know that landscape and moved here from Grand Rapids and found it very challenging. My particular interests are in working with student groups. I also do a lot of work with re-entering citizens, other marginalized communities, and so advocacy work both at the state level and local level. to try to make things better for renters that are really affected by systemic racism and long-term kind of disenfranchisement in our current system. So those are my areas of interest and work here. And we're glad you're here, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. John?
Hello, my name is John Reiser. I'm an assistant city attorney, and I work with the building department, rental housing, on the enforcement of ordinances, whether it's short-term rental or building or just general rental, failure to register, failed inspections, the early leasing and the right to renew. That's my role, and I'm liaison or counsel to this commission.
Thank you. Kristen?
Michelle, we emailed back and forth a little bit. My name is Kristen. I am the staff liaison for the Renters Commission. I can be the group's kind of connection to the city for questions or information or kind of things that you want to do. So if you ever have a question about how things work or anything like that, definitely reach out to me.
And I think I got everyone older on the commission. So Michelle, our newest member.
Yes, hello. I'm Michelle. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm an incoming second-year student at University of Michigan, so I stayed in dorms last year, but like 2/3 of university students, I am moving off campus and renting for my next year. And so I'm just here to provide the student perspective since students make up a significant portion of the renters in Ann Arbor. And I also write for the Michigan Daily, so I wrote a pretty interesting article about rent control and actually interviewed Zachariah Farrow for that, which got me really interested in the subject of renting. But yeah, I'm really glad to be here. And thank you for the warm welcome. And please bear with me as I learn the ropes and how the meetings work and that sort of thing.
Well, I don't speak for all of us, but welcome. Feel free to jump right in. Especially if there's something that you feel needs to be addressed. And of course, you can always contact me if you have any questions as well. Okay. We're going to move on to item 4 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Julia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. The agenda is now open to either be approved as presented or is open to be amended. To amend it, is there anyone who'd like to amend the agenda?
I would like to propose an amendment.
Okay.
The last month, the HHSAB committee did not meet, so I do not have a report today. So I think it's 9C.
Okay. Let's see. So it was moved by Jeff. Is there a second to amend the agenda?
Second.
Thank you, Julia. Sorry. Can we vote on amending the agenda? Is it all in favor? Please unmute and say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, then the motion passes and the agenda has been approved. If there's no further discussion on the agenda, then it looks like we're ready to vote on the agenda as amended. If you'd like to vote in favor, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, then the motion passes and the agenda is approved as amended. Okay, we're going to now move on to item 5 on the agenda, the approval of the minutes. We have 2 items this time. We have the minutes of the April 18th meeting and the May 16th meeting before us tonight. We're voting on the April 18th meeting as well because we did not have a quorum last month. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. It was moved by Jeff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Dan. Is there anyone who'd like to discuss? Nope. All right, so then all in favor? Oh, please unmute and say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. It's been approved unanimously as presented. We're now moving on to the first general public comment. There'll be another public comment opportunity near the end of this meeting. Kristen, whenever you're ready.
All right, thanks. To address the Renters Commission for up to 3 minutes about any topic, you can join the meeting by phone by calling 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and entering meeting ID 935-8080-1941, or using the Zoom link for the meeting, and that is a2gov.org/Renters Commission meeting. If you'd like to address the Renters Commission, you can press *9 to raise your hand if attending by phone, or use the raise hand feature if attending by the Zoom link. All right, no attendees have raised their hand.
Okay, then we're going to move on to item number 7A on the agenda, unfinished business. And we're just wondering if there's an update on the junk fee ordinance. I know that last time John Reiser gave us a brief update, and so we're just wondering if there was anything new.
No, other than Jen Richards and I still need to meet with Travis. We're trying to coordinate that meeting so we can kind of pin down on what exactly, how we're going to define a junk fee, how we're going to regulate it, and how we're going to enforce it. So that meeting still needs to happen.
Okay, thank you, John. Does anyone else have anything to say about the junk fee ordinance? Nope. All right, then we will move forward onto the agenda. Our next item is under new business, which is the, what is it? The officer elections for the chair and vice chair. Because it is the last meeting in June. Kristen, how do we handle this?
Yeah, so the officer terms run from July 1st to June 30th. So you'll vote today on a chair and vice chair, and then they'll start at the July meeting. And it will kind of go the same way we elected Rosanita when Zachariah left. Someone will move someone to be chair, and then somebody else will second, and then you'll vote. And works the same for vice chair. So if you guys wanted to kind of discuss or talk about why you'd be interested in serving as chair or vice chair, Julia.
Okay.
I'm kind of jumping into discussion, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. I would like to encourage Kimberly or Dan, actually anyone, but particularly you two, because you mentioned saying you're just feeling like you're getting used to how the commission works and stuff. So I'd like to encourage you to consider being the vice chair, because I think that's a good way without all the responsibility of getting a feel for how things work.
Julia, really appreciate it, and I'm really encouraged. Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to say, Kimberly, how do you like it? If you want to try, go ahead. I support you. Yeah.
Well, well, thank you. I do appreciate that. I'm not sure. I'm so nervous about it, but Dan, go for it.
You make me happy. That's very good. If you want to try, you try first. If you don't want, I could try, and then I will do my best. And then need help from everybody. Yeah, you decide first. I would like you to decide first.
I think I'm going to suggest that you take it, just with I know I'm super busy with these apartments. So I'm going to
I'm flattered. I'm flattered. Thank you, Julia. I'll accept it. But I need everybody's support to help me if I didn't do well enough. But I'll try. Thank you.
I'll support you.
Thank you.
So, Kristen, does this count as an official moved and second?
I was just about to clarify, Julia, if that is a motion, and Kimberly, if that's a second, then I would say yes, and then you'd be able to vote next.
Yes.
Okay, then Kimberly, was that a yes? Second?
Yes, I'll say yes.
Okay, then all those in favor of Commissioner Chen becoming the new vice chair for the Renters Commission, please unmute and say aye.
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 Opposed? I'm sorry, is there anyone who's opposed? No, then Commissioner Chen, congratulations, you're our new vice chair.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody. I'm grateful. Thank you.
thank you. And now
I would like to,
oh,
Julie,
go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Let's see, John and then Julia. How's that? Oh, sorry, Jeff and then Julia.
I was going to say, and if that's the case, I would like to nominate you, Rosanita, to serve for more than 2 months and and stay as our chairperson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Is that what you were going to say? Okay. Then, are there any other nominations? No. All right, then we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor of me continuing on as chair, please unmute and say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, no one's opposed, so then that passes, and congratulations to me as the new chair. I don't know. All right, so then moving forward on the agenda to number 8B on the agenda, an update on appointing new members to the Renters Commission. See, Kristen, do you want to talk about that, or should I?
Sure. We can, as you all know, there are several vacancies remaining on the Renters Commission, and I know that Rosanita and Julia and Councilmember Radina and Councilmember Harrison have been talking about a few applicants that are on file, and so I think that it's still in kind of the a final decision process before it goes to the mayor. But Rosanita, if you have another update since then.
No, not yet. I think, was it decisions have to be made between the different applicants? and fingers are crossed that we may have an attorney, which has been a long vacant seat. Does anyone have any questions, comments about that? All right. Go ahead.
We had talked about, now I just spaced what his name is because he doesn't come to meetings, Arthur Thomas. And we haven't officially removed him, have we?
His term has ended, so he's no longer, term ended at the end of May. And so he's no longer serving on the Renters Commission. And so it is
okay. That's why we waited. I remember there was something about not removing him, and it's because, okay, thank you.
So there are, is it 4 renter vacancies now? 3? Kristen?
I'm pulling it up now. I thought 2, but it could be 3.
Because Patrick just resigned.
Oh, then yes, I would say 3 is accurate. That was this afternoon or yesterday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
So 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then moving on to 8C, it was just in wanting it to do a short update on short-term rentals. The council members aren't here, but they did approve in the budget, or they approved a company to search for and find unregulated or not unregistered short-term rentals within the city. And so I guess that's that's the update that I have for that.
I reached out to rental housing to ask about when they expect that to be implemented. And I also ran a list of all of the short-term rental licenses in Energov. And I had a few questions about what the different statuses are before I reported to you all. And I reached out to rental housing. I haven't heard back yet, but as soon as I do, I'll be able to send that over with some information on how many are licensed, how many are in the process, how many are expired, kind of thing.
Thank you. And Jordan?
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of curious as to what numbers we're talking about, and would be curious, is the process basically like this is like a secret shopper basically, and they're looking on Vrbo and Airbnb and matching that with, like, how does that process work? I was just a little curious if we know what hiring a company means, I guess.
Just from I'd say don't quote me on this, is just from what I could figure out looking at their website, is that somehow, I assume through an algorithm, probably using VBRO and pictures and whatnot, and Airbnb, they're able to guesstimate, I would say, who's doing a short-term rental, and then maybe putting that against the list of registered short-term rentals to see what the difference is, because again, this is a guesstimate or just a guess or an assumption, is that there are short-term rentals listed on like Airbnb or VRBO, that and other sites that they never show the front of the house, just the interior, and they don't actually give the real address until somebody has connected to them as a renter. Like, you might get an address around the corner, and then be told that no, this is the exact address.
Cool, thanks. That makes sense. I guess I also wonder too what the back end of that looks like. Like, is there is there someone, whether it's from rental, like somebody that could have a conversation with the owner and say, hey, there is, there's a housing shortage here and we can help you get this registered as a normal rental to open up to people for leasing or something. Like, I wonder if there's a way to kind of have part of the follow-up not just be penalties, but also like, hey, can we tell you what's going on in our city, and that the reason that we have these ordinances are really to help make the general rental stock beefed up a little bit. And so I wonder what the follow-up might look like, or what we could ask as the Renters Commission as follow-up. I don't know, just kind of tossing that out there to the group if there's any thoughts, because that would be our ideal intervention, right? Is that not just a penalty to these people that are doing something that is wrong, but also to say like, hey, can this just be a normal rental, and here's how you can get it registered, and like maybe providing some support to the person who's made the mistake on the back end. Does anybody have any thoughts about what that could look like or anything?
Well, first I'll say that I agree with that. And then I'll go to Bob, though, who has his hand raised.
Yeah, I've talked to some realtors and some folks who have registered short-term rentals, and it's a different business model. So it's I don't think it's a choice made out of naive or ignorance of the situation. I think it's mostly it's a decision made for particular reasons, whatever they are. They're not all, there's a variety of reasons why someone may choose to do that, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to encourage them.
I think you're right. I know that people, just as personally speaking, I don't have a short-term rental, but I know that people do it for various reasons, and sometimes they don't necessarily know that they could do a long-term rental. Not, because there are things that somebody may think that, well, I'm not equipped to be a long-term rental landlord, but they also may not know, that there could be somebody who could just do that for them, or what the cost factor may be. I think we just never know, unless we say, hey, maybe you want to do it this way, or if not, at least register it legally as a short-term rental, so we have an accurate number. So then we still know exactly how many long-term rentals we still need in the city versus the short-term rentals. And with knowing the number of short-term rentals, we also could know whether or not, when a developer says, hey, I want to build an apartment complex and leave X number of short-term rentals, then we can positively say, well, we already have X number, and so we prefer it if they remained long-term rental units for now. Does anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns? Kristen, can you update the questions? When they respond back, can you update your correspondence with them with what Jordan asked?
Yes, certainly.
And thanks. John?
So I forgot if Kristen shared with this group, especially the new folks, something that the building department and legal worked on called the Guide to Short-Term Rentals. It's a 2-page. Page 1 is the complaint, and the other second page is the Guide to Short-Term Rentals. And it talks about what a short-term rental is. It talks about the types of short-term rentals, whether it's a non-principal residence or a principal residence. It talks about length of stay. It talks about how many people can stay overnight in a short-term rental. Have you folks seen that?
I don't think I provided it. I'll send it out now.
It's a really good short-term rental. Short-term rentals are tricky, especially in residential neighborhoods. But a short-term rental could be a tenant in a high-rise who decides to go home for the summer and rents out his or her apartment as a short-term rental themselves. So renters themselves can have principal short-term rentals. So
Is that when you have to register to the city if you're subletting your apartment?
sure, you'd have to
Summer?
register it. You'd have to register it, but you could do it.
You'd have to register for a sublet?
No, not a sublet. It's a short-term rental. Not a sublet. A sublet is a short-term rental is up to 30 days.
Right.
A sublet could be whatever. No, if you want to have a short-term rental and list it on a platform like VRBO or Airbnb. So there have been examples where they've turned into, not hotels, that's not the right word, but just Airbnbs in an apartment complex, but rented by a principal residence. So short-term rentals is the application of Chapter 55, which is the Uniform Development Code or zoning code, and Chapter 7, short-term rentals. So, put my hand down.
So
And the guide that Kristen is sending out, is very helpful. And as a UDC, if you have something that's a permitted use under zoning, it's something that we used to say grandfathered in, but it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. So permitted uses under the zoning code become a property right and can exist in perpetuity, notwithstanding changes to the ordinance.
So say I'm a student, right? And I have a year-long lease, and I decide to go home for the week that is spring break, but I know that somebody's coming here and they want to take a tour of campus, right? Because they're thinking about going to the university. And so then I rent them my apartment for the week. Is that considered a short-term rental, even if in my head I'm just subletting it?
It could be, and it could be, and I'll read under Chapter 97, Section 7:651 under short-term rental unit, and it says a principal residence whole house means an activity whereby the permanent resident hosts visitors in their home for compensation for periods of 30 days or less while the residential dwelling unit is not occupied by the owner of record while the guest is present. Now, you do have to get a license, you have to do the fee, you have to register it, but if you've got a enterprising tenant, instead of a sublease, they can do a short-term rental.
Does it matter that it says, I think I heard you say it has to be the owner of the property?
While the owner of record is not occupied by the owner of record while the guest is present. And the owner of record is never going to be there. But there have been these creative short-term rentals by we suspect students. Those haven't been the problem. The problem is in residential unit. Well, the problem is a couple. One is it takes the housing stock off the market, as I think it was Commissioner Else mentioned, that dwellings that would otherwise go to long-term tenants become short-term rentals, VRBOs, etc. And they sometimes become them in residential districts problematically when there's 12 or 13 people in a house, in a hot tub, parking, making noise, etc., in an otherwise residential neighborhood. But taking a look at the guide to short-term rentals will be helpful, kind of getting an overview of it.
And then is this solely within areas that are zoned as residential?
No, they can be anywhere in the city.
Okay.
But there are more limitations if they're zoned residential.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they get the noise complaints, the nuisance complaints. There's too much trash. There's parking. There's a lot, they're too, smoking marijuana or smoking cigars or having hot tub parties or things like that. I mean, because those kind of complaints. Too many people. One of them, however, was a short-term rental, and they were getting those complaints, and the owner just decided to turn it into a long-term rental, which is kind of to, again, Commissioner's point earlier.
Well, what are the fines and fees for if you're an unregulated short-term rental? Because could it get to the point where the fees just pile up so much that it doesn't make sense to be short-term anymore? Is that what happens?
Any person who violates shall be responsible for a civil infraction punishable by a civil fine of not more than $500 plus costs or other remedies available by statute. So $500 if you're not registered, but they're, yeah, that's what it would be.
Jordan?
If we're going through this effort of like paying an outside firm to find these people, is there any possibility of asking city council to like rewrite it and make the fee higher so that it is more, I don't know, more of a deterrent, I guess? Like, I don't know, $500 per year for running an illegal Airbnb.
Per year. I didn't say per year. Civil fine more than $5. I didn't mean to say per year.
Okay.
$500,
So, but they could get cited, like how often, I mean, how does that work? Like if we're paying this company to find these places, how often can they get cited? Like how does this become advantageous? I'm just trying to figure out A, the business logistics behind it, but B, how can we keep moving people toward more permanent rental status?
And I don't know that's not a role for enforcement. That's a role for a council. I mean, that's not something that I try to do when we enforce short-term rental. That's a policy distinction. I'm just trying to take a look at the facts and apply Chapter 55 and Chapter 97. And so we express that policy through the ordinance itself. I mean, and with respect to catching people who aren't registered, in the city, generally, we try to take the first step towards enforcement is education. Someone doesn't shovel their snow. It's not, here's a ticket every time. It's like, hey, you got to shovel your snow. Here's a warning. Or so we do try to, someone is using a gas leaf blower after the date. It's not like, okay, we caught you. Here's your ticket. It's like, hey, you can't do it, and here's why. And here's a summary about the ordinance. So there's a, I don't know, fine line, maybe it's not even fine, but there's a distinction between being too heavy-handed and trying to correct behavior versus holding people accountable for violations that, impact residents. And these are all complaint based. So someone would have to make a complaint, and then they would have to, generally. Now with this new company that's going to kind of ferret them out, that'll be up to the building department to reach out to them to get them registered.
So then, enforcement wise, is your take that it pops up as, oh, this may be an unregistered rental, short-term rental. The building department then investigates and find out first, number one, is it actually being rented out?
Well, so I don't have, this is a new program and I haven't dealt with it.
Okay.
Short-term rental complaints I've dealt with have been complaints from generally neighbors about activity going on at a short-term rental where someone who claims to be a principal resident doesn't live there, or that they have too many people, or they're advertising it for too many people, or there are noise and nuisance complaints associated with it. And those are generally in residential districts.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? All right, then we'll move forward on the agenda to in number 8D, which is an update on rental housing staff attending one of our commission meetings to answer the questions. Kristen?
Staff from rental housing responded to my email, and they explained that they've had some staff leave the department, so they're a little bit short-staffed right now, and they said that as long as they're kind of fully staffed and able, they can plan to come in the fall. And I think that would be a September or October meeting. So.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, it's June now. Okay. Let's see. Go ahead.
I'll put together something for compiling questions, and that's something the group could get started on now, so that when we have a date from rental housing that they're available to attend, we'll be able to send the questions over for them to kind of review and get working on. On my list.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. And then that moves us on to agenda item 8E, the plan for the July 18th Renters Commission meeting. I think I have a question. If we're having a document, if we're going to compile a document of questions, do we want to do that during a regular commission meeting?
I feel like those things tend to go well in the smaller subgroups. We could always bring it back. Like, it just feels like something that has worked well just being on for a couple of years now, that like if the education committee wants to take that on, because I think kind of rental housing has fallen under what do we want people to know about the process and the protections. So maybe it would make sense to do that in a small subcommittee before that meeting on the 18th, but I'm not married to that.
Does anyone else have any comments about that? So I agree that it's probably best to do it in an education meeting. Would anyone like to volunteer to join that meeting? Thank you, Jordan. Oh, sorry. I think we lost Commissioner Tibbetts, didn't we? So then I guess we'll send out a doodle asking when people are available and if they can join for that. Is there anything in particular that people would like to discuss for next meeting?
I think I just am really hopeful that we get this junk fees ordinance going. Like, we're starting to get into the students thinking about, I mean, it's summer, but the students will be back before we know it. They'll be, getting bugged and thinking about wait lists and all of those things that we've been trying to deal with. So I just really would like to hopefully we have some news in July for that. I hope. The voice of hope.
Okay, then yeah, I also would like to see that an update on that, and hopefully an update on the short-term rentals, the questions that you asked, Jordan. Julia?
I was just looking at the website trying to count. I think we're actually down 6 voting members, one of them being the attorney. So I would like to have membership on the commission on the agenda.
Okay. Gail?
Just getting back to the junk fees issue that Jordan raised, I was going to ask John, if you're still there, is there anything that we as a committee or a commission can do to help you with the information that you need regarding the junk fees?
No, you've provided examples. I got my draft right here. You've provided examples. Those were the 3 charts that you sent me the other few weeks ago were really good examples of what they are. I mean, of what they charge. But no, I think it's just, Jen and I just need to meet with Travis and kind of incorporate his ideas into the ordinance. So there are kind of 3 aspects. There's application fees, there's pre-tenancy fees, and then there's junk fees. And how do you ban junk fees and not raise rents across the board? Because landlords are just going to say, okay, all the fees we would otherwise be charging for, we're going to just now call it rent, and we're going to increase rents by whatever the average junk fees are. And maybe that's better because at least it's transparent. At least you know what you're going to pay, and there are all these extras you get dinged for. So just that's one of the concerns we have. It makes it transparent, but it also can make rents higher.
I guess when you say that, yes, and that's possible. I think that we can't default to always that part. Like, part of this is these fees are sneaky, right? So that's like the part of that is that when you sign a lease and you expect X number of dollars per month in your budget, and you're, a student that comes from a lower income background, having these sneaky things come up. So part of the ordinance is the money, and the other part is the sneakiness. And so if they put it into rent, and at least then the tenant knows this is the rent, and
right.
You get what I'm saying? Like there's 2 parts to what we're hoping to improve with this. And so I think we can't default too much to, well, they're just going to raise rent. Because of the fact that at least then it would be transparent and all documented and less stuff added.
And for the students that I see, many of them have a very tight budget, and so the transparency and the ability to sort of evaluate and know and be informed renters is really important. The fees in the 15 years that I've been at Student Legal Services, I've seen the fees change so much. They are just, there's so many bizarre and creative, I guess.
Revenue enhancing fees.
Revenue enhancing fees, exactly. And some of them just aren't connected to any benefit that the tenant's getting. And they're not, as Jordan said, transparent. And so, all of a sudden the tenants find themselves in a situation where they can't afford to be there, and honestly they can't afford to get out either, because some landlords are charging $500 for them to just try to find someone to take over their lease. So it's really, at least for the students that I see, putting them in a really bad space.
Jeff?
I was just thinking, from a perspective of this could actually, getting rid of these fees could increase a little bit of competition, because some of these fees are just so darn high that I have the impression some of these students in particular are paying this fee and they can only afford it one time. So by eliminating these, it might actually increase some of the mobility of the students and the other renters, and then actually possibly bring rents down a bit.
Is there any type of communication that people would want from the Renters Commission to send to council about the junk fees in support of creating the ordinance, you know, in hopes of.
No, I don't think so. It's just really buckling down, getting with Travis and getting something going, you know, so that we can roll it out as soon as we can. And then getting it, you know, letting administration take a look at it and see what the staff demands are for it and how it would be incorporated into the city administration if passed.
Is there a target date that you have?
No, but I can certainly try to have something by July, and I can make that commitment right now.
Thank you. Julia?
I think it would be appropriate, Rosanita, if you reached out to the council members. I guess particularly Travis is working on this, since he's not here at the meeting, and just communicate to him that we're feeling an urgency with this and hope he can get together with John soon.
Okay.
Yeah, he and I have been texting, actually.
Okay.
During the meeting about this a little bit.
Thank you, John. Kristen?
Wanted to add that it might be worth thinking about how you want to let people know about the ordinance change. I know we've done like updates to the email subscribers about the change and a web page, and if that's something the Renters Commission wants to put together. I'm not sure when rental housing would, or if they would kind of put it together, you know, when the ordinance is effective. And so I think you in the past, the group has been motivated to let people know about it, things like ELO and right to renew. And so I think if that's something you're looking to do, it would be good to think about that in the next couple meetings.
Is it before, because that'll happen before I came on the commission, is that something that the commission started working on after there was already like a draft or something of the ordinance, or the ordinance had already passed? Like when did we let the like outside of the commission, when did people know that something was even coming up, I guess?
Yeah, I think with right to renew and ELO and all of the kind of versions of those, that education about it after it was effective came after it was decided on. Sorry, I'm trying to think about the timelines. All of the like guides and complaint forms are certainly kind of well after the ordinance was passed and in effect. And I think it's tricky for people to get information about their situation to determine if there's a violation or not, if there's not a resource other than like a city ordinance, which is sometimes difficult to interpret or even locate. So I think after there is a draft available, it would be good maybe to kind of think about a guide, or even just like something for the website.
Thank you, Kirsten. I agree. It might be something to talk about next meeting. Then, if we're already going to be talking about the update, then maybe next meeting when we have our council members here, so we'd have a better idea of when things are coming. We might get a better idea of when things are coming out, so we know when exactly we should start working on it. I think between the update on short-term rentals, update on the junk fee ordinance, and talking about membership, in addition to the normal agenda, that's probably enough for the next meeting. And so if no one else has anything, then we'll go ahead and just move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay. Then we'll move forward to section 9 on the agenda, which is reports. Normally we'd have a report from City Council, but they're not here tonight. And we already removed 9B, the report from HHSAB, because there was not a meeting this month. I did have one question though for Jeff. Are they meeting next month?
Yes, they should be.
Okay.
The last time they didn't have enough agenda items to have the meeting.
Okay. All right. I know sometimes there's some commissions that take like the summer off, so I wasn't sure. Next is 9C, which is reports from commissioners. Do any of the commissioners have any updates for us that they'd like to share? I'd just like to, I guess, formally under the reports from the commissioners, welcome Michelle to the commission. And, you know, like I said before, if you feel like it, just don't hesitate to jump in to the discussion, especially if it has to do with what you are most comfortable with, whatever it is you're most comfortable with. If you hear us talking about students and student housing and renting, and you're like, in your head, you're going, I don't think this is right, feel free to speak up. We want to hear it. Okay. And so moving on to 9D, the report from the staff liaison from Kristen.
I don't have a report this month. Unfortunately, my updates were about kind of communicating with rental housing and about appointments. So next meeting, I'll put together an updated report about the rights and duties of tenants booklets. Distribution is picking up a little bit with kind of the time of year, but I know that we still have quite a lot left. So I'll check in with our staff who manages that and have more info next time.
Okay. And now we're on to item 10 on the agenda, the second general public comment.
All right. Public comment can be made by phone at 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and entering meeting ID 935. Oh, sorry. The meeting ID is 935-8080-1941. And then you could also join the meeting using the Zoom link, and that is a2gov.org/renters commission meeting. And if you are joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And if you are joining by the web link, you can use the raise hand feature to be called on. And that's if you'd like to address the Renters Commission for up to 3 minutes about any topic. So if there's any attendee who'd like to address the Renters Commission, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, there are a few attendees, but no raised hands.
Okay, so then moving on to item 11 on the agenda, which is communications, which was 11A, communication to the Renters Commission. And there was one email, I believe, talking about, that was about a possible early leasing ordinance violation, to which they hadn't yet been offered a lease renewal, I believe is what it said, and Kristen responded back with the correct forms. Does anyone want to discuss or see the communications? Okay, then that Jeff?
Yeah, I did read it. Do we know if they actually filed a complaint, or is that just the only communication we have?
That's all we have. They didn't respond, and then I often I'll hear from Janet, and I didn't hear from Janet in this case.
Maybe there'll be an update for the the next meeting. I forget, with the form, is it a web form or is it something that they have to download, fill out, and then email or mail?
Yeah, it is not a web form. It's a fillable PDF that could be emailed, but I do, yeah, not
just something to think about, especially as we think about like junk fees and other things, and if they're making up, I guess, updates on the back end and rental housing. If there's a way to have a web form, if that might be easier for people. I don't know if filling out a PDF is a deterrent or not, but
I think that would be if you wanted to communicate to rental housing about that, I think that would be totally appropriate. I know that the FOIA submits with a fillable form on a city webpage, and the Human Rights Commission, I also think, accepts complaints that way. And my understanding is that after that information is submitted, it kind of goes into a spreadsheet that then staff would have access to.
John?
But Pete's going to want to see the lease. Pete's going to want to see the emails, the correspondence. You're going to have to upload, and maybe those documents as well that are part of the complaint. It's more than just sending us a complaint. It's sending us a complaint with the documentation so that we can ferret out whether there has been a likely violation or not. And then Pete will often reach out to the landlord to get their account.
Is it in the initial complaint when they're filling out the PDF? Is that when they're supposed to attach all of the documentation as well in that email?
If they can forward us the email chain. There's often an email chain back and forth about wanting to renew, not wanting to renew, the terms, things like that. And then there'll be a lease that they forward us to, so we can get the terms. When the lease start, that type of thing. That's generally what we get on these.
But it's all attached at once, or is it that they fill out the PDF and then there's communication saying we need XYZ?
Sometimes there'll be outreach like, we need this, can you provide this? And so if you just give us a form, that'll get the ball rolling, and then Pete can say, hey, can you provide us this, can you provide us that? So it's not like you can't make a complaint if you don't have everything there. You can make the complaint, and then Pete will follow up and get more information.
Okay, so we could do a fillable, so there's the possibility for the fillable form,
Right.
And then rental housing will handle it the best way possible.
Right, Garrett, follow up for what's needed. That's correct.
Okay, and Kristen, would you be the one who would ask them about that, or would I? And if it's me, could you get me the person's email who I would contact?
For sure. I can ask, I'll talk to some of the staff in the clerk's office about the process for implementing it when the clerk's office did it with FOIA, to kind of learn about what the like a little bit more about the process, and then I can give that information to you. And then if you wanted to reach out to rental housing, or if the group wanted to talk about it and do kind of an official request, that also could be kind of a way that you do it. I know the groups also had kind of discussion about accessibility, and I think it could also be something to loop in maybe the city's accessibility coordinator for information or a recommendation. I think that
So then, even though we already closed out that item on the agenda for next month's meeting, would this be appropriate to actually be on the agenda for next month?
Sure, for sure.
Except, whether it's a fillable form is gonna, in some respects, be up to Alicia. Because with
Right.
Chris McFarland just having left, so it's gotta kind of work within their workflow too.
Right, which it doesn't hurt. My thing is, it doesn't hurt to ask
No, right,
if that helps, if it makes it easier. I don't know.
I think that's something the Renters Commission could propose as part of the request. You could include like anticipated benefits of having one uniform way for people to submit complaints rather than a few different PDFs located on different web pages, as an example. So I think it's great that the forms exist. It's been, I think, really helpful for the enforcement team. And also when I was putting together the list for the previous meeting, it was the newer forms definitely capture more information.
I think it's a good idea, and I was just thinking about the upcoming ordinance too, and then it's just either another PDF or it's a fillable form. Or a web form. Let's see. Are there any other questions or comments about started with the communication from the one renter? Okay, then we'll move on to item number 12 on the agenda, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Almost.
Thank you, Dandan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julia. All those in favor of adjourning, please unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, then I will send out a doodle form for meeting up with the Tenant Education Committee, and the meeting's adjourned. Enjoy the rest of June and July. We'll see you then.
Thank you very much.